Most mutants have their powers manifested during an event filled with stress and duress. However, they also undergo something called a secondary or tertiary mutation, which could be brought about due to various factors. Now, I will keep the intro short and get straight to business. I will first explore what exactly these mutations are and what factors could trigger them before diving into the four most significant cases of these special kind of mutations. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What are secondary and tertiary mutations? Secondary mutations in the Marvel Universe aren't just about getting an extra power. They can give mutants new abilities, boost their existing powers, or change how they look. Sometimes, it's all free. These mutations often show up in a mutant's 20s and usually during intense stress, though other triggers like experiments, severe injuries, or drug misuse can also cause them. For example, Emma Frost's diamond body was a result of secondary mutation crafted by Cassandra Nova. Professor X once gave a talk on secondary mutations at Johns Hopkins University, which he discussed in Wolverine First Class number 2. While he didn't reveal much, Beast provided more details in New Mutants Volume 2, number 12. He revealed that a mutant generally experienced a secondary mutation in their 20s, and much like the mutant powers, the secondary mutation manifests during a time of great stress, but it could get triggered by other factors as well. For instance, experimentation, fatal injuries, drug overuse, and sometimes secondary mutation could practically be created. For instance, this happened when Cassandra Nova created Emma Frost's diamond body. After the incursions wrecked and then reshaped the Marvel multiverse, refugees from destroyed worlds ended up in the prime Marvel universe. One of these refugees, Jimmy Hudson, carried a mutation engineering drug called Mothervine in his DNA. Oh wait, did I tell you who Jimmy is? So yeah, he's Jimmy. He's Wolverine's forgotten son from the Ultimate Universe, introduced in 2010's Ultimate X #1 by Jeff Loeb and Arthur Adams. He and other mutants from different dimensions were captured by Miss Sinister, who used them to form her new Marauders. She was fascinated by this genetic quirk and experimented on them to better understand it. With support from Emma Frost and her Hellfire Club allies, Claudine discovered that Mothervine could trigger spontaneous genetic changes even in fetal stages and create new mutants with activated abilities. Through intense and unethical experiments, it was found that Mothervine could trigger secondary and tertiary mutations in fully developed mutants. However, many of these changes were fatal or harmful and ended up causing some mutants to lose control of their powers or even lead to death due to the gene therapy being toxic. Many enforcers in Mutant underwent this process, which significantly enhanced their existing powers. After more testing, Havoc declared it ready for global deployment the next day.
You can stop trying to read my mind, Sugar. You're never going to get anything from me while...
Most prominent cases of secondary mutations. Emma Frost's organic diamond. Emma Frost first appeared in the Dark Phoenix saga, created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. As a Hellfire Club member, she quickly established herself as a top telepath and was on par with Charles Xavier himself. Yep, the OG telepath and mutant messiah. In the original X-Men the animated series, she was part of the Inner Circle during the Dark Phoenix saga and was primarily responsible for manipulating Jean Grey under the Phoenix Force's influence. I can't say she was a very nice person. Well, no. Interestingly, Emma returns in X-Men 97. She's now based in Genosha, which, you may very well know, is a mutant refuge under Magneto's control. Besides her telepathic skills, Emma has a unique secondary mutation, which was triggered by a Sentinel attack. Interestingly, it was orchestrated by Cassandra Nova. This mutation transforms her entire body into organic diamond, similar to how Colossus turns into organic steel or how the Thing from Fantastic Four is made out of that rock thing. She must transform completely, as in her entire body needs to transform in order for the mutation to take effect. Additionally, once in this form, she can maintain this diamond form indefinitely unless knocked out, which forces her back to normal. One of the downsides is that in this form, Emma becomes much colder as a human and less empathetic. But there is a silver lining for her. You see, her strength in the diamond form increases dramatically, which allows her to lift up to 2 tons. Emma Frost's diamond form gives her incredible stamina and durability. Her muscles cells don't produce fatigue toxins, so she can keep going indefinitely until she changes back. This form protects her from most physical damage. She's withstood attacks from young Cyclops' optic blast, Hulk's punches, and even a blast from the dreaming Celestial. Though the Celestial's attack broke her arm, it highlighted her limits of durability. For comparison, a Juggernaut-powered Colossus was severely injured by a similar hit. Interestingly, she couldn't revert back to her normal form until the broken arm was reattached. Emma's diamond form can also handle extreme temperatures, and she can endure up to about negative 390 degrees Fahrenheit and withstand heat up to roughly 7,362 degrees Fahrenheit before it starts to melt. While transformed, she doesn't need food or water. However, there's a trade-off. In this form, Emma is immune to others' telepathy but cannot use her own telepathic powers until she reverts to her normal state. Beast's feline form. We have always seen Beast in his beastly form with the fur and all that, right? But he was not always like this. Initially, he simply had oversized feet. So, what's his story? Hank McCoy, known as Beast, left the X-Men to become a genetic researcher at the Brand Corporation, a part of Roxxon. Here, he worked under Dr. Carl Maddox and dated his assistant, Linda Donaldson. But that's not important. What's important is that Hank discovered a hormone that could trigger mutations. Eventually, this discovery led to the mutant growth hormone. Jealous, Dr. Maddox planned to steal Hank's research. Of course, Hank fought for what was his and ended up giving away his identity to a few. To protect his identity, Hank took his own serum but dramatically transformed. The dude developed gray fur, enhanced muscles, pointed ears, claws, and sharpened fangs. The serum also increased his agility, endurance, speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. After preventing a security guard from stealing his research for Dr. Maddox, Hank realized he had missed his chance to reverse the effects and was permanently changed into his beastly form. Hank confronted Dr. Maddox, but stopped short of harming him. However, Maddox was shot by Linda, who was secretly working for the Secret Empire. To maintain his normal life, McCoy wore synthetic masks, gloves, and a posture-improving harness. All of this to keep his identity safe from most. But then security head Robert "Buzz" Baxter suspected something was off. Originally, as a teenager, Beast could lift about 1 ton, but after mutating into his blue simian form, his strength increased 10 times. Now, he could smash through brick walls, toss cars, and twist iron barbels. His strength further increased after being enhanced by infectious kiss.
Now, Bub, you listen to me.
Gambit's clairvoyance. Gambit's primary power is charging objects with kinetic energy to make them explode, right? However, he also has a lesser-known secondary mutation, similar to Spider-Man's Spidey Sense. After an embarrassing accident where one of his charged cards exploded and temporarily blinded him, Gambit developed a form of clairvoyance, as revealed in X-Men Volume 2, number 162. This precognition allows him to see images in his hands that warn him of upcoming dangers, a handy skill for dodging the frequent ambushes faced by the X-Men. Gambit's main ability is to accelerate the molecules in non-living objects through touch, making them unstable enough to explode. He often uses this to charge his playing cards for explosive attacks. In an alternate reality, this power evolved further, allowing him to manipulate kinetic energy at a molecular level, making him extremely powerful. Despite regaining his sight, Gambit's clairvoyance remained, proving to be more steadfast than even Rogue. Kid Omega's incorporeal state. Quintavious Quentin Quirinius Squire, also known as Kid Omega, has a kid in his superhero name, but he's an Omega-level mutant, and someone even the adults don't want to mess with. He's a top-notch telepath and telekinetic, and a superior scion. Quentin also has connections to the Phoenix Force. He's been its avatar, and is predicted to be a future host in his older form. However, Quentin was not always on the right path. He once attacked Professor X, incited a riot at X Mansion, and called for an open season on humans. Yep, he called for outright slaughter with no discrimination. During one fight, a telepathic shockwave blasted him through a wall. Quentin had previously overdosed on a drug called Kick, which his body couldn't handle. When coupled with the blasting, it led to his psionic energy going haywire. This triggered a secondary mutation where his brain turned into faster than light energy, which in turn linked him telepathically to everyone on Earth. Quentin was about to take out Professor X effects when he summoned Zorn, who exposed Quentin to his star-like head. This seemingly ended Quentin's life. However, he wasn't really gone after his apparent death. He existed as energy in a containment unit in Beast's lab. When the Phoenix Force came back, it initially mistook him for Jean Grey, but then moved on. However, its presence brought Quire back to life, which allowed him to reform his body. He tried to resurrect his love, Sophie, but failed. When the Phoenix resurrected Jean Grey and then inhabited Emma Frost, Quire broke the containment holding the Phoenix and Emma and pleaded with the Phoenix to bring Sophie back. Sophie rejected him and chose death once more. Hurt by the rejection and overwhelmed by the events, Quire apologized to the X-Men and reverted to his energy form. Ultimately, he ended up back in a beaker in Beast's lab. So, yeah, that was it on secondary and tertiary mutations. What I find really interesting is that people like Beast and Emma Frost have been depicted in live-action movies in their secondary and tertiary mutations. And most people believe that's how they are. You know, like that's what their original powers are. Did you check out our video on the 15 most terrifying secondary mutations? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.